interesting discussion was today.
I'll tell you later.
Do I have time to grab my thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, this one doesn't ever work really good.
I'll get it
that blue
back.
one.
You know I do.
That's the one I
Eventually.
brought from home.
There you go.
Is this blue? Yeah.
There's blue, but it's not a good one.
Okay.
He's giving you thumbs.
All right, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the City Council work session. This is for Monday, November 30th, 4:30. City Hall, Thomas J. Smith's Council Chambers. We're going to jump around on the agenda a little bit to allow the people that called in on the Zoom meeting to speak. First up, on our proposed regular agenda will be December 7th, 2020, is a resolution approving the city manager position profile, and I believe Mr. Hinson is on the line. So you're ready to go, Brent?
Yes, I am. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for accommodating me by phone here. It's been a pleasure working with you guys to this point. We had really good one-on-one meetings and got a lot of good information from that. And now we're to the point in the process that we're ready to go out and advertise if you guys say we're ready. So basically what we've done at this point, I provided you a memo that was in the packets. Hope everybody got a chance to look at that and kind of understood everything that we're addressing at this point in time. The main event is really the position profile that was attached in the packets, and you know, that's basically our marketing document for the position that we'll use to go out and talk to candidates and show them all the great stuff and you know, the challenges too in Burlington, because of course we're dealing with dedicated professionals that like challenges too, and every city's got their share of them. So we want to detail all of that nicely in the position profile. I think we've accomplished that, but I'd be happy to take any questions that you guys might have on that.
Council, you have any questions on what he presented?
I thought it looked very professional. I was impressed. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Brent, I looking at some of the negotiating parts, I absolutely don't really have a problem at all on the severance. As far as the 9 months, I'm fine with that. The vacation time would be something that I think we probably would need to talk about with each candidate, depending on their experience level. Other than that, it looks to me like it's pretty good. I thought the packet laying out what Burlington has to offer was well done, so. Anybody else have any thoughts on it?
I wanted to echo what you said. I'd like to review some of those compensation pieces on a candidate-by-candidate basis, but I felt like the profile from a broad spectrum was accurate.
Okay. Bill? Eric?
I agree.
Yep.
Or, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Brent. I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. And really the main thing that we're trying to get at this point is just making sure that we've, you know, as far as that benefit package, that we've kind of discussed that through with you. We know if there's any big sticking points as far as the council's concerned. And it's just to kind of get you guys mentally prepared for the idea that, you know, not only are we going to do a recruitment process, an interview process, but then ultimately we're going to have to get down to negotiating with the candidate. And we just want to make sure that we've got everybody kind of aware of the range we're going to be negotiating in, both for pay and benefits and those sorts of things, so we don't have any surprises later on.
Okay. Well, I think as a council, we're satisfied at the moment, so march on, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, did you have anything to add?
Okay, well.
Hang on, Jim's coming to the microphone.
Yeah.
We like to let Jim comment on everything.
Yep.
Well, I just wonder if you should really be trusting
You
Brent,
can
but,
listen to his comments.
Yeah.
yeah, they listen to me, but I'm just wondering why they listen to you, Brent. So. I guess the biggest thing from my perspective is everybody's situation is gonna be different coming in, and, they're not all gonna be focused on every issue that's listed and addressed by Brent. But there will probably be some issue that is a big sticking point for each of them that is unique to their situation. And I think just being accommodative within the realm of what's being laid out, and the salary range is one from just want to make sure that everyone is on board and understanding what you're committing to in there, and what he's laid out, and looking at the comparisons, it makes sense for that range for this size of community, but you also got to be on board with that.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
thank you, Jim.
otherwise, what they've done, it looks pretty good, and it's pretty standard for,
Yep, and kind of what I always say is, I like to set salary ranges based on realistically, for a candidate with a little less experience that you really like and you think is great, that lower end is going to be where you're going to be at. But for a highly experienced candidate that's just kind of your ideal candidate, I mean, we're talking Jim Furneaux plus, then it's like, you're willing to do that upper end as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
If
Or
there is a Jim Furneaux plus.
I don't know. He's been pretty good for us. Any other questions, council? All right, sir, I think you have the go-ahead.
Okay, outstanding, sounds good. If anything comes up between now and the 7th, please let me know. Otherwise, I'd be happy to, I'll probably listen into that meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you.
All
Oh,
right,
wait a
thanks,
minute.
everybody. Have a great day.
Wait 1 second.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Jim's coming, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Jim was coming back up.
one thing I wanted to bring up, and it is kind of with you, Robert, the interview schedule on that Saturday, you've got those throughout the morning. Are you going to be able to commit to getting to those?
If we could make something happen later in the afternoon, then it would be more likely that I'd be able to be present. I have a work schedule where I start really early on a Saturday morning, about 3 a.m., but a lot of times I'm not rolling back in until about noon.
So do you think that's doable, Brent, to have the interview schedule start more like the 12:30, 1 o'clock
Are you talking about January
on that,
30th?
that Saturday?
I might not be there that afternoon, though.
Oh,
I wouldn't be able to do an afternoon on
Oh.
that day either. I think I'd only be available in the morning
I thought we were talking about this
for,
Saturday.
depending on what you can do.
Well, so I'm.
Okay, well,
For-
let's talk about that a little bit more. We will have more time
Okay.
to consider that. I just wanted to lay out for you, here is what a typical schedule looks like. But we're going to have at least one more, I think we're actually going to have 2 more in-person meetings before we would get to a final schedule that we need to set. So, basically between now and January, I think 14th is when that meeting is, that we really have to have this nailed down.
Okay. So it's the 30th, though, wouldn't work at all for
Well-
you? We'll
have
figure it
to-
out.
We'll have to
Yeah.
have a discussion here over the next few days just to see that we coordinate everybody's schedules
Right.
to make sure we're hitting a time that works for everyone.
Okay.
And Brent,
Absolutely, and we've done it before where we've even done some interviews on the Friday. We can split it up. If we can get everybody to commit to a certain range of time, we will then structure things around you guys' schedules.
and I can't remember, Stephanie, was there a reason why we couldn't do the following week?
Yeah, I'm not available.
Stephanie isn't available the following week, so we'll have to make sure that we hit a time that does work.
Okay.
And it's something I can make a request and see, vacation schedules were through the end of the year. So starting at the beginning of the year, I doubt that anybody's scheduling vacation at the end of January, which is what I do. I cover people's vacations. So maybe I can wiggle something loose where I can be there for everybody else's timeline.
Okay. Well, we'll sort it out. Now, does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Henson? Now we'll let you go, sir. Thank you.
All right, no, hey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yep, bye-bye.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move a couple of the presentations up, so people aren't hanging on the phone. We'll start with the TAMA project update. Mr. Wells. Do you have them unmuted? Okay, Mr. Wells, you're ready? When you are.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. So, Eric's put up this is the second and third floor plans. I want to walk through that, and then we'd like to present the first floor plan. And, we had a good success with IEDA, Department of Labor, regarding the wage rates for the Davis-Bacon compliance. And this was a very significant thing for us, and it makes the numbers work on the project. So the proposed build-out is the same as we've been working on. However, they are going to let us use the residential wage rate if we build the supports on the first level and the second and third floor as one project together and finish it. So that is the plan that makes these wage rates work. So on the image that you have up before you on the screen is the first floor plan. So to the left is Jefferson Street, and 3rd Street's at the bottom of the image. So the green box are the apartment functions of entry, mailbox, storage, office, and community room in that block. And then in the pink block, the large retail space, which is 6,000 square feet, that portion would be built right after the apartments are completed, and so it is supported by the columns that are shown in that I'm going to call it pink box. There's an exit stair that comes down that is red in color. So when the apartments are done, let's say you drove by on Jefferson, you would literally see through the building into the courtyard. It would be open air, and then immediately after the project's accepted and the apartments are complete, we enclose the first floor retail space. And then that lets us do the wage rates in this manner, which was a really important goal for us. And then we're excited and happy about that. And what I'm wanting to communicate to the council is we have no intention whatsoever of not doing the first floor retail space. But this method of organization is letting us do it in 2 phases and really helps the project. And now, Eric, if we could go up to the next floor plan. This is the organization of the apartment floor plans, and we have one change that we're happy to mention is we were building 22 apartments, and now we're building 24. And in the corners are 5 2-bedroom apartments on each floor that are shaded in blue, and then there's 4 1-bedroom apartments that are shaded in green, and then in the inside corner there's some that are a beige shade, and they are what we're going to call loft-style apartments. The plans are more open. On 2 of them, the bedrooms are open and a very different feel for apartment. And then the apartments that are on the interior courtyard have some pretty nice, nicely sized balconies. So this arrangement lets us build 24 units instead of 22, I think, which is going to be good for everyone. And then I've been working closely with Justin Myers, and he received bids on Wednesday for some site remediation and retaining wall reinforcement. And we're going to talk about those numbers tomorrow. He's just pulling together. I haven't seen them yet. I don't know where the numbers ended up on that. But that's kind of an update. So with regard to the work, provided the retaining wall numbers are okay, we would begin that work right away now and get that going. And then the goal is to panelize the wood framing construction of the apartments, and that work would take off as we work through the retaining walls. So our plan is to get the first phase with the retaining walls going, and the second phase with the apartments going also. And I wanted to introduce Charlotte Porter, who's online with me, and she's been working closely with me, keeping the project coordinated. So with that update, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sir, would floors 2 and 3 be the same then, as this floor plan?
Yes. The second floor and the third floor are identical.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
Doug, did you mention dates for the start of phase 1 and phase 2, or did I just miss that?
I did not mention dates, but if the numbers look okay on the retaining walls, Justin would like to begin right away, which means I don't know if it can happen this week, but I sure want to get it going as quickly as possible. Perhaps next week. And he's also coordinating with Sarah Heacock at Southeast Iowa, and I think has those things in order.
Okay.
And then with the courtyard space, is that strictly for the people who are renting apartments, or will the commercial space have access to that as well?
Yeah. Eric, could we go back to the first floor plan, please? Okay, so on the first floor, the retail space is designed in a way that we would have glass opening onto the courtyard, so we could have the possibility of a restaurant that could have dining space in the courtyard, and then the large opening to the east that's shown in white right now. On those walls, we're reusing the historical artifacts from the original Tama building, so that'll be a feature, but we're envisioning the courtyard is open to the public all the time. So we hope we end up with pedestrian traffic through there, and I think it'll help having that wide opening on 3rd Street.
Very good, thank you.
And so it is, yeah, it's my hope that we get some retail activity that can benefit from the courtyard with outdoor dining, and help energize that space and have activity there.
Right on.
All right, sounds good. Anybody else with any questions for Mr. Wells? Staff, do you have anything to add? Why Mr. Wells is on the phone? No? Well, I appreciate the update. We'll keep our fingers crossed for a quick start time.
Okay, all right, and I will, Eric, I'll keep you posted. Just as soon as we know the schedule.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our discussion items, the short line presentation, Mr. Hoth.
Thank you. I don't really have a lot new to add since last time. I just wanted to come back again in case my presentation from last time generated any questions. Now that you've had a little bit of time to think about it. In recap, again, what we're doing is moving the passing track that's east of our main line by the auditorium. We're going to move it north up by the marina, but to the west of our main line there between our main line and the wall for Bluff Road. So this really has three parts to it. I'm going to go over those again really quickly, and then hopefully what my plan would be in the future is to have some documents for us to start going and reviewing to make sure that everything is lined up. I think the first thing was the easement that we would need from the city for where we're going to put the track up there. Everybody seemed to be in agreement that that was going to be okay. I'm still working with Jeff Miller at Klinger to come up with a plat for that, which would be probably recorded in the future or attached to the easement agreement, so we would know definitely the space, and to incorporate in there any access the city would need for maintenance of any city property up through that area. The next part was, we talked a little bit about the cost savings and benefits the city's realizing from this project. The design savings that the city's getting from building a single floodgate versus a double floodgate, and having street crossings that were single tracked versus double tracked. That the city's gaining some additional development space for parking or other city amenities there by taking that track out. That there's increased safety there because of the single track versus double track crossings. In this part, we talked about we have budgeted about $300,000 for this project to relocate the track. We have a loan lined up from the DOT for around $228,000. We're paying the balance of that out of pocket. And I think as the city sees the project develop, you were thinking about what what benefits you were going to realize and what cost savings you're going to have, what you would be willing to contribute to the relocation of the track. We talked in the neighborhood of around $200,000, but we were going to wait to see what some of those actual savings were going to come in before you felt comfortable committing to a particular number. And then I think the third thing, which we just sort of more generally touched on, was coming up with some sort of operating agreement, basically that would address the maintenance, that the city was going to be responsible for the maintenance of the floodgates themselves, probably when they would go in, when they would come out. Ideally, we'd like that again to be kind of in line when the levee gates closed, the current levee gates close, that everything kind of closes and opens simultaneously. I think just operationally that makes sense. And then to think about, too, in that agreement, how Burlington Junction is going to kind of formally give over to the city this area that where our east passing track is now. That may be a little bit, that's kind of a phase two of this. I don't think it should, delay any of the city's plans, but there was some mention whether we talked about looking at redoing the complete easement all the way from the levee to where we interchange with the BNSF. Had just kind of kicked that around a little bit. So those were the three areas, and I just wanted to, I think we covered those pretty well last time, but just whether you'd had any questions on that since last time. So as I'm starting to draft some things for you to look at, I can make sure to cover those for any questions or concerns or things you'd like to see there.
Council?
So, I mean, I guess I can go first. So you've got about 4 questions there, and I think you're right. I don't think any one of us would have any problem with providing an easement for where your new track is going to go.
Right.
Is it safe to assume that there's a significant savings for you to move the existing track to the new location because you don't have to go out and purchase a bunch of new material?
But we will be purchasing new material. We're going to put down heavier rail
Okay.
than is there, and we'll be using new ties and ballast. So we won't really get to reuse.
The existing,
The
okay.
existing track. I mean, there is a benefit for us, I mean, because it'll be a contiguous piece of rail without street crossings.
Right.
And we can store cars up there. It's sort of though, but for you doing the flood wall project, there's lots of different projects we could work on.
I mean,
Whether we would be doing this one right now, I don't know that we would,
Sure.
do that right now.
So, I mean, I think my position is I'm definitely willing to share in the savings. I don't know that 200,000 is the number, but I don't know that because I haven't seen any hard numbers as to what our real savings are.
Right.
I know that the land that other track sits on, I believe, is actually city-owned, but you guys have the railroad easement on it currently?
That's correct.
That's correct. And I went up and I went on the GIS and added it up, and it's accumulation of about, I think, a little over half an acre of land.
Yeah, so I had to
somewhere
do
in
the
that
same thing
ballpark.
too.
So I don't know from a dollar amount that there's a significant amount of value there, but I think instead of, if this is even possible, and Jim might be able to shed a little light on this, instead of charging for the new easement up north, perhaps we just do a swap of easements on the 2 existing pieces. So I don't know if that's a possibility or open up for discussion on your end. But again, I'm willing to share in the savings, but I need to know what those hard numbers are. How much money are we actually saving by going to the single gate? As far as the agreement for maintenance, I don't see any reason, unless somebody else presents one that I'm unaware of, why we wouldn't assume responsibility to take care of the floodgates, given that we're putting them in, and given that city public works typically operate the flood structures themselves. So I think, does that answer all 4 of your questions? And I'm one of 5,
Coordination.
so
Right.
I'm one of 5, so maybe somebody else has a different idea or a different position. But again, I think I can't give you a number, in my opinion, until Jim provides those to us, and I haven't seen it yet. And I think he's going to do that now.
So I think that Nick kind of covered a little bit, as they work through estimates on costs, and then we saw what the dollars, actual bid numbers came in, it's about $170,000 worth of savings for changing to the single structure. I mean, there's no definite because you're bidding a different product, but just go on the width and what the product was. That's where the engineers felt comfortable that your
Okay.
savings were. Now, as part of this project, as they've raised their tracks to accommodate trying to get things to where gate closures will be consistent throughout there with the existing one north of the marina. They've encountered some costs to do that, to raise those through that whole intersection so that they don't have an extra layer of issue with ours. We've encountered some costs with that. Ours was $35,000 or so.
It was in 20 bracket for High Street.
For redoing that apron. So 20-some thousand.
That was the vehicle crossing there?
Yep, so I look at savings for us, we saved over 150,000. We've gained flexibility for what we're doing along the riverfront area that, from a timing perspective, this was very valuable to us. It's not a time where they had to do this. When I look at the relative value of what's appropriate for us to be putting into it, I was thinking in the 150 to maybe 200,000 range. They're coming in talking about that 200 to 250 was what you were hoping to see. I'm okay with being in that 200,000 range. Now, one of the things that I'd also like to point out, or just encourage the short line, as we move forward and there's other work that needs to be done, you know, we've had to deal with ballast on the road. We've dealt with if there's other raising of track through that area that makes adjustments to the road. I'd hope that you are taking care of those approaches to make it happen. But as long as those things are happening, I'm okay with that 200,000 figure, but you got to be comfortable with it as a group.
Yeah, I guess I would say that I'm okay with it because I do understand the point that if it wasn't for us doing the flood wall, you wouldn't be doing the work right now. So, you know, if we're close to that figure, I don't see where the split really matters so much because your investment on that, you have cooperated with the city on things. I would echo what Jim just said. I'd like to see the guys a little cleaner when they're doing their work, just because we had to make a few phone calls last time. And I'd also like to be able to get home, Mr. Holtz, when we're doing that crossing on Front Street. I'm smiling now if you didn't see that. So we need to coordinate that because actually that park gets a lot of activity. But I thought it was going to be, you know, when we originally talked about this way back when we first started talking about it, I had in my mind it was going to be around, our cost was going to be around 200,000, which wasn't going to make you whole, but it was going to help because if you wanted to fight this, you could really drag out our flood wall project, in my opinion. And not that that's a concern because you've worked with us all along. So I don't have a problem with the figure at this point that Jim was laying out, either between the 150 and 200. We need to sit down and discuss that, but I'm willing to look at that.
And I think where I would, if the number's 170, would vote in favor of splitting that number with you. So you would share half the savings that we say on the flood wall project or whatever the accumulation of that is. I'm not at that 200 number. I think one of our jobs as a council person is to work with private individuals or entities such as yourself, but also protect the public interest. And I feel like if we were giving you that 200 number, yes, we'd be saving 200, but we would essentially be passing those savings on to a private company such as yourself, which really doesn't benefit the citizens of this community the way that I think it should, which is why I feel that way. I also understand.
You still would have a $100,000 cost, though.
I understand that, but you're still. I feel like we'd be shortchanging the citizens of Burlington if we did that. I also believe that you know, at the end of the day, moving the tracks does benefit your company, and as a business person, I understand it. Part of that is just the cost of doing business. I do appreciate the fact that you're doing it when you're doing it because it helps our project, which is why I'm personally willing to share in those savings. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents.
I appreciate that, and you know, I would just point out too, you know, it's for probably every dollar the council has, it has 5 ways to spend it, you know, and is this the best, you know, between parks and pools and first responders and economic development, you know.
And city managers.
And, you know, where do each of those dollars land? And,
Yeah.
And I think too, I would just, you know, and I appreciate the council working with us and considering, you know, reimbursing, you know, part of the cost of doing this. But I think there's also it creates an economic, investment in the community when you have a strong rail link to the national rail network that we can provide. This project is making that better, which ultimately can help jobs and the economic growth of Burlington. So it's
And those are all great reasons, and I agree with 100% of them,
So,
which I think is why I would be in favor of, like I said, I don't see any of the other things that you brought up as unreasonable or things that we couldn't work with. I just can't get to that 200 number.
Sure, I understand.
I feel 50-50 is a great split for if we're saving money, you know, and you're doing us a favor and helping us, allowing us to do that, then I feel like, you know, half for the city and half for your company is very reasonable.
I think that's very fair, and we appreciate that.
I appreciate, Matt, you definitely did your homework, and I appreciate where he's coming from, but you had me at increased safety.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate
Any other
I'd like to
comments,
see
council?
it, I'd like to see it on paper.
Okay.
That's, before I would say either way. I'd like to see it on paper, figures.
Well, we need to draft an agreement regarding the easements and the coordination of the levee closings and the maintenance. So we possibly could start working on that document and then hammer out the figure later.
I mean, is it, Jim, can you shed some light on this? Is it accurate to assume that if we provide him with an easement, that he would typically pay for that, for the new track? Such as we would pay for an easement if we were to put in a sidewalk, for example, or something?
Well, that is the point, because we're gonna use some of that land for parking on the
It,
river.
it depends
and
on
the
what
reason-
we're, it depends on what our arrangement is. If it's just a pure, if that's the only piece of the pie or the puzzle, and all you're doing is getting an easement, yeah, there's usually a cost either way for someone on an easement. But we have a lot of situations where we do trade-offs on that, and
That's where I was
here,
going with
here you're changing easements from one area to another. You're changing it from a less valuable, or a more valuable area, we're restricting it, and we're giving some in an area that's less valuable in terms of what our needs are. And the only thing that we have to protect is, I mean, if we ever have to work on the retaining wall there, that's where we have easement needs to make, or access needs to, as part of that easement to make sure that we can address that. And they're willing to work with us on that, so.
Yeah, right now, all we're doing is picking up trash and mowing that area.
And I think that's where we can find some added value for Mr. Hoth and his organization to make sure that those costs are diminished as little as
In-
possible.
In terms of written documentation, I don't know what we're gonna provide from a financial perspective.
No.
We've got an email from the engineer that did the project that basically told us the 170,000 figure based on where the bids came in. That is the extent of what we're gonna be able to provide, because we didn't bid two separate projects.
Sure.
Gotcha.
I think, could we have something that would say, that would show where the easements are?
Well,
And-
we'll have to do that, and we'll have to have, we're going through the process of redoing the easements on both the area down along near the auditorium as we reduce it to what they'll need moving forward, and expanding the easement up north and making sure that we have a current document that takes into account the full needs along there. Because we don't have a great document. That easement through that area goes back a long time. It goes back prior to us having it, and
Bill,
this is a way for us to clean up an issue that both entities have to get it taken care of.
I would say that, in my opinion, the easement locations is somewhat irrelevant. We're swapping one for the other, which I think is a
Yep.
reasonable request. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't accommodate it, because it is safer, not only for his railroad, but also for the city of Burlington, so it's a benefit for both. I think the only thing I'm stuck on is the number.
And it's a separate issue from the easements. Now, we're gonna need to, part of the easement side, we're gonna need to have an operating agreement, as you talk about, for us repairing or maintaining that floodgate. Well, there's some additional costs that go there too. I mean, their rail line goes through there, and how we divide up costs for that rail through that is gonna be part of that discussion, depending on what's going on, and we're gonna have to make sure that everyone's in agreement on that. So there are a few more details with that to work out. Again, those are non-cash type things. They're not part of worrying about what the dollar figure is. You all are gonna have to come up with an idea of, based off a request for funds, how are you addressing that? And again, we saved that 170,000, and there's a additional benefit to us, and it's what you're comfortable with going on that. You certainly have a good justification for the $200,000 request, the low end. I'd have more trouble at the high end of what they're requesting, but they did this at this time for us,
For us.
so.
See, I would, I think that's just me. God dang this thing.
It's not fun, is it?
Yeah, it's not. I think for me, at the minimum, it should be at least 150. I don't have a problem with 200. Then you're, not that it's small numbers that you're talking about, but there is a benefit for us as far as not delaying our project. So I, you know, at the low end, 150 seems very reasonable to me. It's half his cost for doing work that he wouldn't be doing if it wasn't for us pushing the flood wall. And you know, that would 150 or 170, if that's savings to the city, we're just paying that back. We're not out anything besides the access to be able to get this project done. So if nothing else, we should just say, okay, well, the savings are 170, and we've forced a business to move ahead of something that they may do eventually, but wouldn't be doing it on our timeline. I think the 170, if nothing else, that's the total savings to the city, then we pay that back, and we're at 0 point. The easements, I don't have a problem with. I think the agreements as far as maintaining the communication about the levee gate closing and coordination, all that is fine, and I'm sure we'll have a maintenance agreement. But as far as the swapping of property, it's actually more benefit to us, in my opinion, than to him, just because it allows us to do our riverfront plan as well. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. But we need everybody's thoughts on it.
I would say that at the 170 and the way it's exchanging and our savings, calling it a wash and helping each other out would maintain a relationship with you that we'd like to keep and continue. And we're getting what we want done, and you're getting a project done that you hadn't planned on, but it's going to help you too. So sometimes calling it a wash and helping each other out is probably the right thing to do.
Bill, thoughts?
I'm in that 170 range. I think that's a compromise. I'm not against the 200 either, because I think of the relationship and it's benefiting everybody. But I'd be in favor of that.
Linda?
I'm on board with the 170. Again, I cited the increased safety reasons as my main driver, but then we do want to have a good rapport and a good relationship with you, and then it will bring us down to that single track, and just a lot of good things in it I see for us. I'm on board.
Jim?
Where you're all communicating, where you're kind of at, there's not complete agreement, but we can get a resolution approving the 170,000 figure for that transfer. It won't be on next Monday's agenda. We want to make sure that we get that through the attorney. But probably the following agenda, there may be some negotiation that you end up doing and changing that figure, but we'll do it based off of that 170,000 for what we present at a future meeting, okay?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Hope. Thank you. Next up would be Bob Petzlica. Is that how you pronounce it, Bob? And that's on the.
That was acceptable.
Please tell me the right way to say it. It's for Otter Island Logging.
Right, good evening, everyone. So, we're finished up marking the trees on Otter Island. If you'll recall, we had administered a sale for the city back in 2008, and prior to that, the next sale harvest was done in 1981 that we were not involved with. But we finished up, so we've marked a total of 1,585 trees, and the board foot volume, which is how we measure trees, was 650,620. And I do want to stress that we use the same guidelines on this sale as we did in 2008, and are reminded more than once by Ryan and Eric that the goal of the harvest is to do what's best for the owners of the island, which is the citizens of Burlington, and maintain the health and long-term productivity of the forest resource on the island. So we followed those guidelines. Compared to the sale in 2008, back then we had marked 4,600 trees, and the board foot volume was 1,823,000. So percentages, in this current sale, we're at 34% of the 2008 number of trees and 35% of the 2008 volume. So just slightly over a third of the 2008 sale in size. The areas marked included some of the areas that we had not included in the 2008 sale, but also some of the areas that we had just done a lighter harvest, pulling out some of the lower quality trees in 2008. So both revisiting some areas previously cut, but also adding some new areas in. The 2008 sale income was $601,000. If we use the same price per board foot, the sale would bring around $200,000. I'm hesitant to guarantee that because there's just lots and lots of dead trees out there, and if you're on the river at all, you notice that all up and down the river. I was marking a sale today south of Burlington. It's on the Iowa side, but along the river, there's dead trees there, and it's simply a reflection of water levels being too high for too long. And even though we're dealing with bottomland species like silver maple and cottonwood, even those species can't take it. So included in this sale that I marked, there are a number of dead trees. I salvaged as many as I could. I just don't know how that's going to be reflected in the bid, how the potential buyers would look at that. I know in speaking with them, they say it depends how long they've been dead and things like that. So otherwise, I guess I don't have many other comments. There's some excellent regeneration out there, which we're already striving for. Mostly young silver maple that, I took some photos of areas that have, 300,000 or 400,000 seedlings per acre. So the key is getting that up above the water level. So, if they're fully leaked out and we get the water's up over the top, it'll kill them. But we do have some advanced regeneration that's in the 6 to 8 inch diameter range, and that is their canopies are above the normal flood levels now, so that's just off to the races. And fortunately, silver maple and cottonwood are two species that are prolific feeders and have very reliable seed production every year. So real happy with the way it looked since we did the sale 12 years ago, and ready to send this one out for bid now.
Okay. Eric, do you have anything to add? How's this typically work, Eric? We pay and then we do the sale, and how's that balance out?
Maybe Bob could explain it. We already have a contract with Bob to go through this process.
Okay.
Maybe Bob could explain
Okay,
that.
if you could explain that, Bob, just to make sure.
I don't know if you did.
Here comes Jim.
You want me to or Eric?
That's okay.
Jim will take it.
We, a couple of months ago, entered into a contract with Bob several months ago, a year ago, entered into a contract with Bob to go through this. He's been trying to get out there and evaluate them when the river level was low enough to allow it. He's been working on this for us. We've already entered into that arrangement.
Okay.
He'll be coordinating us going out for bids on this as we move forward. And that, when bids come back, we'll have to coordinate getting it through the city for approval.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you very much, Bob, for hanging with us. Oh, wait a minute. Matt's got a question.
Offline, I'd like to talk with Bob offline. Can you provide me his contact information? Bob, this is Matt Rinker. I'll contact you offline.
Okay, sounds great, man.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, now we'll try to get back on track with the proposed consent. The first thing on the proposed consent agenda is a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. Anybody see anything there? No. Next one is a resolution approving a refund of liquor license for Hauler's Tavern, doing business as Hauler's Tavern. Anybody see anything there or have a question? No? All right. Third is a resolution approving the 28E agreement between Lee County, Iowa and the city of Burlington, Iowa for ambulance services. Chief Trexel.
All right. So this is the agreement I briefly talked about maybe a month ago, and then we signed the conflict of interest notification for our last council meeting. And just a reminder why we're looking at the agreement, and that's because Lee County is moving from a private ambulance service to a county-owned service. And when they started doing that, they formed a steering committee, and I guess they wanted to learn from the best, so they came up to Burlington and just picking our brain about everything, you know, about ambulances themselves, about staffing, and about billing. And that's where this agreement came about. At first, they were just wondering how that worked, and I think they were thinking they were going to do their own billing or hire a third-party service. And after meeting with Dana, our billing manager, a few times, they decided, well, why can't she just do our billing? And so at first, I don't know if I relayed this before, I thought, I'm not really interested in taking on somebody else's billing, until we thought about it just for a minute. Thought, we've been saying, and one of the things that we've said is we don't have a contingency for Dana. When she's not there, nobody does the billing. We don't have any way to do that, or payroll, or our purchasing. And some of that stuff we could probably figure out, but billing is a specialized thing where it's not like I can go down there and learn how to do it, and then when she's gone, I can take over. I would have to do it on a regular basis to keep up on not only how to do it, but the rules and regulations. So what this agreement will allow is for us to have a part-time person to assist Dana, and then when she's gone, like maybe now when she's out for 10 days with a common disease a lot of people have, we have somebody that can take care of the billing, not only the billing, but the payroll. Has to come in on the weekend and make sure that people get paid. So that's the best part of this agreement, is having a part-time contingency coverage for when Dana's not available. So just to go through the highlights of the agreement. Basically, she's going to do the billing, or her and another person, the same way that we do ambulance billing for the city of Burlington. How we did the normal process of sending out invoices, and then the follow-up, collections, Iowa offset program, that type of thing. She's going to do exactly the way she does for Burlington, same as she does now for Mediapolis. And for that, the city of Burlington's going to invoice Lee County 6% of all the revenues collected, and we'll do that on a quarterly basis. And I'll kind of talk about what that means in a minute. They're also going to pay for any expenses that there's some extra charges like going to the courthouse to do filing fees and stuff like that, Lee County's going to pick up those. We'll add those onto the quarterly invoices. Number 3 on this agreement says the county shall provide to the city an ambulance claims audit review after the first year of the agreement, and then every 2 years thereafter. And this is the audit that we have done every 2 years, just to make sure that we're compliant, to stay ahead of any problems. We don't want to all of a sudden fall out of compliance and then realize it 5 years down the road and get hit with a big Medicare or Medicaid fine. So this will give them some peace of mind, and also us some peace of mind. And so we've been doing that every 2 years, and we actually had so we pay somebody to come in and they audit our books and say, you're compliant, or here's some areas to improve. We actually had Medicare came in May of this year and audited us, and we're like, okay, everybody gets really nervous. Medicare wants all this documentation, and we actually got a 95% score. So we had one claim that fell out of what they said was out of compliance. Of course, Dana looked at it, she goes, no, they're wrong. She sent in a rebuttal, and they said, yeah, you're right. So we were actually 100% compliant on our Medicare audit. So that was good news for us. So they're going to pay for that. Then the other numbers there are really just how we're going to make this work. They're going to send us up the reports on a weekly basis and that type of thing. Down there, the withdrawal from the agreement, either party can withdraw with a 90-day notice. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but that is in there. And so besides us hiring somebody, what's the revenue mean? So we're estimating somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. And so we tried to, and they know we're hedging on the high side to make sure we're not going to lose money on this billing agreement, but we're not in it to make a whole bunch of money either. We are getting a benefit of having a part-time person and somebody to cover for Dana. And so it was really hard. They sent us their revenue from the previous year or where they're at. It's hard to say that's exactly what the revenue will be going forward. We really don't know. It's kind of an unknown. And so we're just making sure that we're covering, and that's something that we can revisit with them if it looks like it's not going to be good enough, or we're bringing in too much. We really don't have a good firm number, but we're making sure that we're going to cover our costs. So they've already agreed. They've already signed the agreement down in Lee County, and this would take effect starting July 1st of '21. It's when they take over the ambulance service down there. So,
Council, thoughts, concerns?
Sounds like you got a pretty good plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know Dana's quite effective at her job as
Yeah.
far as collection and billing, so that's fantastic. And looks to be a good deal for me,
Yeah.
so. Jim, do you have thoughts on it? I saw you shift in your chair there.
It's just an uncomfortable chair. I don't have a chair like
I
yours
don't
up
know
there.
why no one's using
But-
that one, but I mean, I thought you were all pretty smart, I guess. I don't know.
No, we work for the city.
Jeez. You can see he's on his way out.
Yeah. No, what I wanted to say with the
Yeah.
agreement, the revenues that they're talking about, we're building into our budget, the cost for the additional staff person. We're also looking at Dana's position. We've changed based off of her responsibilities, adding in, like this is, and some management now of a little bit more. It changes where she fits in job classification wise, so we're building into a change in position range for her, and it fits within it, and there is some flexibility above and beyond that, so it works out as a win-win
Good.
for everyone.
Does this mean we have to wait till July to get the second person then, or is this gonna happen soon?
No, as soon as you get to a spot where this agreement's in place and you're starting to go through the process of doing the billing, we would look to bring that on. We'd have to amend our personnel manual to add to incorporate the position. Well, is that in the personnel manual? Non-union. So we would have to do some stuff to authorize, but it's one that we'll add that position when we get to the point where we're starting to do that billing.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, next up, Zach James, I think is still in line. We have a resolution adopting the Des Moines County multi-jurisdictional pre-disaster mitigation plan update. Who's taking that one on the city side? Anyone?
I don't know why I am.
I don't-
Write
that's
anything with it. Zach could probably better explain it, but
Okay.
this is something that we did 5 years ago. We have to update it every 5 years. Regional planning handles it, and he'll probably carry on from there. But essentially, what's in the packet is the 2020 version of the pre-disaster mitigation plan, and then a resolution that approves your approval of it. So
Okay.
he's probably better explaining
Mr. James?
process is.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, yeah, Zach James with the Southeast Regional Planning Commission. As I think I heard Nick mention, this is a plan that we prepare typically every 5 years on behalf of Des Moines County Emergency Management. It's a requirement that they approve for FEMA, and really the focus is on identifying mitigation strategies that will reduce loss of life and property damage from potential disasters. So a good example of that would be like the work you guys are doing with the flood wall project, identifying some kind of mitigation strategy prior to a disaster to prevent loss of life and property damage. That's exactly what the plan's about. So it was a process we started back in January, a lot of data collection and identification of what types of hazards we need to focus on in Des Moines County, what their impacts will be, what happened historically, all this information is in this planning document. And as part of this, then we work with cities, counties, schools, some other public agencies like levy districts, DESCOM, things like that, and identify specific things within their communities that they want to adopt as mitigation measures. So we mostly worked with Nick in the Public Works Department, but we did have input also from the Police Department, Fire Department, Planning, Development Department in this process through the City of Burlington. And essentially at this point, the plan is been approved by the county and submitted to FEMA. They've approved it and adopted it. And now, at this point, we're going to all the other participating entities and requesting that they adopt it and essentially put their stamp on the mitigation measures that they identified within their community. And ultimately, probably the biggest key for each community that is by adopting this, it allows for opportunity to apply for hazard mitigation grant program, grant funds if you are part of an approved, FEMA-approved mitigation plan. So, I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
Council, you have any questions, any concerns? I don't see anything. The staff have anything to add? No? I think we're good, Zach.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next step would be a resolution awarding contract for the 2020 Recplex detention pond repairs.
So in the packet, you had a memo, but it didn't have any dollar figures. We received numbers as on the day that the stuff was due for the packet. But this project is to fix or do some improvements to the retaining or the detention pond just on the west side of the Recplex. It involves going in and reshaping the bottom of it. What's happened is they were kind of created at the same elevation, so it's created a swamp in there. The Recplex staff will typically mow it, but they haven't been able to do that because it has water kind of sitting in it all year round. Trees get in there, tall grass, so we're going to do some pipe work with this project and then reshape the bottom of it. This is good winter work. You're not pouring concrete or anything. It's easier to get in there because there's a lot less water. We had two bidders. We don't have to go to formalized bidding because it's underneath the state threshold of $47,000. We had two bidders. Four Seasons was the lowest at $20,632, which is significantly lower than what the engineer's estimate at $37,000. So we will use stormwater utility fees to pay for this project. And I would think it would happen here in the next couple of weeks. The excavating contractors are kind of looking for work, so I think that's the reason why we got a good price. So,
Anybody with any thoughts or concerns? Sounds good. Thanks, Nick. Next step, a resolution amending fees and charge schedule at Flint Hills Municipal Golf Course. Eric?
This is something we look at annually, where we stand in relation to other golf courses and where we've made changes in the past. We've generally have done some minor increases on season passes. The last couple of years, we haven't adjusted daily rates in the last 3 or 4 years. So we did bring this to the Golf Course Advisory Committee. They reviewed and did recommend approval of the changes as shown in Exhibit A. So it'd be a $20 increase for season passes, $10 increase for the trail fees for the golf carts. Does have a $2 increase on the weekday specials for 18 and cart, and then a 50-cent increase for 18 holes for adults and seniors. Other fees are staying similar. We look at primarily Schaefer and Spirit Hollow, just the local courses. Spirit Hollow is not quite comparable just in the style of course and how they do their pricing. We are well under that, although they do some deep discounts from here to there, time to time. Schaefer, we are still under their fees. They're at $750 for single season pass. We'd be at $700. Cart fees are at $650. They're at $775. And then for weekday specials, they're at $32, which we would be at, and their seniors are at $30, and we're at $29. So we try and be either similar or under them. We've consistently been just under them last couple of years, but I feel we have a little more quality course as well, but trying to be competitive and retain some of those golfers that go between those courses or look at those courses. This fall, we have had a a very good season weather-wise and play-wise. Our revenues are up considerably in the fall. Hopefully that trend continue in the spring as well. So, do you have any questions on this?
Any thoughts or concerns?
What's the, rough estimate on the percentage of increase each year?
Usually we try and look at, daily rates has been 0 the last couple of years. Season passes, it's between 3 and 5 is what we try and look at. We don't make an increase every year, so some years it might be at 5 or 6%, with some years being 1 or 2%. So over time, we try and look at roughly that 3% annually, though it might be less than that when we don't make increases.
Okay. Any other thoughts or concerns? Sounds good to me. Thank you. Then we're going to set a date for a public hearing, December 21st, 2020. And that will be a consideration and application for funding through the Iowa Economic Development Authority Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, Career Link Employment Transportation Funding Program for Hope Haven. So we'll talk about that. And also a public hearing for ordinance amending Chapter 81, all-terrain vehicles on the snowbills and Burlington Municipal Code. That'll be December 21st. Discussion items, Treasurer's Report. Stephanie Stuker, Finance.
So in the packet was the October report. It's pretty much as expected. Our general fund went back positive because we did get in our sales tax, but other transfers need to be made, so, but at least it came out from being negative. Other than that, on our projects, we're still, working away on the ones that have deficit. A lot of that's timing, drawing down loan proceeds and also grant proceeds. But really, like I said, October, the beginning balances still stay preliminary because our audit is not officially over, but the June 30th treasurer's report has not changed. So we're expecting that to be issued in the next couple of weeks, and then everything will be final.
Okay. You don't see anything wrong there?
No.
Basically, good. Any questions or concerns, gang? No? All right. Are we doing the 5-year road plan today or waiting?
We'll do the 5-year road plan next time, but I did want to point out with the treasurer's report, not necessarily something so much on the treasurer's report, but we get funding from for the flood mitigation project that we had. We were awarded $26.2 million on that, and I had you copied on an email with that today. As we've looked, we were waiting 6 months for, as we've submitted our quarterly reports for something back and not gotten anything. We finally got something back. And for last year, the first 2 quarters of last year, we received somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 for that, and we were supposed to get $650,000 or $700,000. As they looked at the remainder of those two last quarters, they showed a negative increment. At the same time that our local option sales tax went up 10%, which makes no sense, but it has to do with online sales. The way that the authorizing legislation went in when that flood increment was first done, it wasn't written in a way to think about online sales tax collection. And since it's a moot topic from that authorizing legislation, the Department of Revenue up to now has not treating it as part of their funding formula. Until they do, we are likely never to receive funds from that account. I mean, just the dynamics of what's happened with the change towards online sales, I don't know that we'll ever get up for what's collected here physically to where it is an actual growth.
When we initially signed that agreement, what was the expected revenue from that account?
$26.2 million.
Over how many years? Over
between now and 2033.
So is it safe to assume that we have to make that up somewhere else or between now and 2033?
If we don't get a fix at the state level, and we're not the only city that's dealing with this.
Yeah.
So if there isn't a fix at the state level, if we're gonna do those projects, that's all gonna be covered through debt service levy.
Okay, so do you, obviously, since we're not the only city that's having this problem at the state level, is it something you feel like they're trying to address?
I think that they will. It's gonna be a matter of what's the proper mechanism, and you saw a response,
Yeah.
Mayor, from our lobbyist through the League of Cities. They know this isn't an issue that hasn't already come up, and they're not trying to figure it out, but they're just trying to figure out what's the proper way to deal with it
yeah.
without it getting confused with other issues.
Does this go through IEDA?
Well, the determination on how things are treated is through the Department of Revenue, Office of Management and Budget.
Okay.
What's the right title, Steph? Is it just Department of Revenue, State Department of Revenue? Yeah. They have a group that does the operating rules based off of the legislation.
Because that was signed, what, 2014?
Or 15, yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I just want you to know that that is an issue. One of the things that we were looking at this year, the flood project was bid at $4.8 million. And we have engineering fees and contingencies. You don't know where the total is gonna be. We only borrowed $4 million for that project. 4.2. So we have about $1 million worth of overrun there that we would have covered with the cash that we should be getting if we were getting credit for the online sales. This year should have been 800,000. It's gonna be zero.
That deficit's only gonna get worse, especially with everything going on right now.
Yeah. So I just want you to know that that is a significant issue, and we need to get a fix on that, or we'll be in trouble. I mean, we just will be. It will impact our ability to do other projects.
What's a reasonable time that you feel like we'll have an answer on whether that's gonna change at the state level? 6 months?
Given that, March,
Okay.
given that your legislative session starts in January, they'll be doing some behind-the-scenes negotiations on this between now and January, the next month. But, I mean, those are hard to do in this environment where you have limited conversations. But, and as they go through the session, my guess would be around March that there's a solution on that.
So we'll probably not have an answer prior
Not by
to
budget.
us certifying our budget.
Yeah. Nope.
Okay.
But and we have the ability to be flexible with cash on hand, both, I mean, the two funds, the general fund has a significant amount of extra capital this year because of the way reimbursements went with COVID. And then local option sales tax is significantly higher, but this is gonna depending on how things work out, this may take that complete, well, we're talking about, we'll use some for the short line.
Sure.
We have a couple other things, Eric has one, I think you're still bringing up yet tonight, that we can handle, but this is really gonna be, the major use of that funds potentially, that slush.
Contact our senators and state
Yes.
senators. All right, so we're not doing the 5-year road plan tonight, right?
Correct.
You've been out of pocket there. What about the Joint Safety Committee?
She's been similar.
Out of pocket as well? And you said something that Eric had for tonight, you want that on future discussion or before the appointments, or how do you want to do it?
Just gonna do this right now.
Okay.
Been looking at the pool deck project. We had some funds in this year's CIP, talking to Jim and looking at what we could do, looking to do a full project instead of phasing it over the next 3 years and having increased costs and disruption. So part of that, we saw engineering services and have an agreement with French Rent-A-Car to do engineering on pool deck, full deck replacement project, engineering for $14,600. Looking at a pool, the deck project in the $85,000 to $100,000 range to do the whole thing. Like I said, we had $30,000 in this year's budget. We're anticipating doing $30,000 to $40,000 annually the next 3 years to try and get this done, but would like to see it done at once where we're not having that cost increase over time and maybe see a larger cost over that time. So that's what we're looking to do, is add this engineering service agreement to the council's agenda for next meeting to try and do a full project at the pool and get that done and not have to budget it over the next couple CIPs.
Okay. Questions, concerns?
What's the next big item that needs to be taken care of out there? Because
It's
we've,
the deck project.
the deck, but we've replaced the pumps. That was
Done
about
the,
6
done the
years ago.
liners, we've done some of the pumps, probably the water heater would be something, we've kind of worked through that, that's not as big of an item as this. We've done the roof on the pool deck, or on the pool house, so.
Pool
we've
house
addre-
is in pretty good shape otherwise.
Yeah, and it's an old pool house, we've done painting in there, and we've done some of the pump work, probably the heater, is one of the major things that, if that were to go out, we could operate, without a heater like other pools do, but swim lessons aren't as convenient in some of that use, but, the pool deck project is something that's through our inspection through public health has been noted annually the last few years. We've done some patching, some caulking on some of the seams, and it's just deteriorated to a point, that we have to do it in order to maintain it. We did I think it's a 40-foot by 8-foot section 3 years ago, just a small section, and as we cut back, it just kept getting further because the deck would crumble as you try to do saw cuts, and you just have to go further back. So that's one of our worries about doing a phase project as well, is you just don't know where it'd end up stopping, and especially along the seam. With that, we'd probably try and pour some new diving board footings with that. Our diving board stands, once those are removed, those likely wouldn't pass inspection to be replaced, so that'd probably have to look at new diving board stands as well, so.
Any idea how long a pool that repair will last? For the
This'll,
pool deck?
pool deck will last longer than our pool liner,
Okay.
which is a 15-year liner, and this.
Probably 50 years, give or take, 40,
Yeah,
50 years.
and as long as concrete lasts, so, we'd
right.
probably be looking at the liner or some other replacement beforehand, and ultimately, what's the long-term for the pool at that 15, 20-year timeframe is a future discussion as well, so.
Sounds good. No other questions? All right,
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say to your last comment, I'd rather have that discussion before we put almost 100 grand into the pool deck.
Well,
What we
this-
want to do long-term with the pool. That's why I asked
And we're
about
looking
future
at that
projects.
15-year timeframe for the liner, and then whether it's replacement of that liner, or we have a 50, 60-year-old pool, and there's no guarantees, but we've done everything to maintain it and keep it up to date and try and keep it moving along, but if something dramatic were to happen out there, and that's
Okay.
unforeseen,
So this will get us 15 years down the road.
the liner will, and doing this kind of corresponding to
Okay.
that, along with the pool house is secured
Yeah.
with that roof,
I-
so.
The reason I asked, I didn't want to get into a $100,000 pool deck and then we'll have to worry about another $100,000 project 5 years from now for the
We're
pool
hoping
house.
that isn't the case, but,
Pool, but
yeah, yeah.
doesn't sound like that's going to be the case.
No,
It sounds like we're in
yeah.
pretty good shape for the next 10, 15
Yeah,
years.
the
Okay.
pool heater would be that $10, $15, $20,000 thing down the road, so.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, and like you said, we could possibly operate without it.
thank you.
Then the next thing, no other comment on the pool? Okay, next thing up is we have 3 appointments. Jeff Leinenberger's term's expiring. It's requested that we consider reappointing him on the Renewable Energy Advisory Committee, on the same committee. Tanisha Kalupa's term is expiring, and it's requested to consider reappointing her to a 3-year term. And Commissioner Roger Guard's term will expire in December, and it's requested we reappoint him. And Commission Member Kirsten Bob's term will expire, my glasses are fogging up, 12/31/2020, so it's requested we reappoint Kirsten as well. Any questions with that? All right. Anything further from Mr. Tislin in Development? Mr. Fitting in wastewater? No? Nick, Public Works?
I'm sorry, I know, I can't ever stop. There's a couple of things I'd want to bring to your attention. First, on Harrison Street, or Harrison Avenue, rather, you will see that there are right around 13th Street, there are some cones on the north side of the roadway. We have a sanitary lateral and a main, it's combined right now, line that is creating kind of a suck hole where it's bringing down the asphalt. We've TV'd it. It is in an area where we're planning to replace this next summer. So the timing is convenient, at least that it's on the front end of this and not on the back end. What it'll have to involve is us going in and doing some stick replacement of the pipe. And it'll also include moving forward with some sewer lining underneath that roadway for the sewer pipe. We'll do that with a different project, but I wanted to let you know that we will have to excavate in that area. It'll involve probably a road closure between 13th and 15th for a certain period of time, and Jesse will be able to throw a scope together pretty easily. I mean, there's not much to that design, but it'll probably have to be a kind of emergency type letting. I don't think it'll cross into that bid threshold, but in case it did, I would want that declared prior to awarding bid. We'll do it kind of similar to the way we did the Recplex project. The other thing of note is I received a couple calls today on it, but on Mount Pleasant Street, you'll notice right west of the bridge, there's quite a few traffic cones in that area. Alliant with K&S Energy as their contractor is doing a significant amount of potholing / gas work in that area. So they do have traffic cones that shifts traffic over to the center lane. They do have 2 flaggers, so it's pretty well done. But it is, just so you know that it's going on. It isn't the city, but it is something that they've gone through, and everything seems to be going okay.
Okay.
So,
Did they tear up asphalt we just laid down?
no,
Okay.
they shouldn't have.
Okay,
Not
I was
in
just
that area.
curious.
No, so
Because I know we
they've
just
done
did
this
some
Rob
asphalt
Roy
work.
project for a while, because I saw an area that I thought had been touched, but it was a jack and bore pit. So they had actually brought it across the other side, and then they went across Mount Pleasant Street, and now it's reopened. Well, they grabbed it from there, and they're moving west. So they're right by Burlington Glass and just east of there, or west of there now. So I don't know how much longer they'll go. Hopefully they don't go too much longer. They've got quite a few holes opened in the roadway with a plate going across the concrete. So I'd like to see that all fixed before we get winter. So
Okay.
that's the only things I have.
Sounds good. Stephanie?
So just a reminder, this Saturday, we have the police chief interviews for the city council. They're going to begin at 8 o'clock.
Sure.
There is a schedule change, which I'll be sending out tomorrow. We had 1 candidate withdraw, so we only have 3 candidates now to interview. We're still going to start at 8. We'll go into closed session for each one of them. And then the interviews will be here at city council. Jeff Kaler, our consultant, will read all the questions, and there'll also be some instructions I send out with that. I know I'd sent you all the backgrounds, but does anybody have any questions, or? So they'll come into town Thursday night, the out-of-town ones, and then they'll be testing and doing interviews on Friday also. Friday afternoon is when we'll have 3 panels. They'll meet with the police department personnel, the department heads, and then the city manager and some citizens. We have about 8 citizens on that panel, which is
good.
great, so that's what we have going, so.
Sounds good.
We're all good? Okay, thanks.
Very good, thank you. Chief Klein?
I don't want Nick to be the only one to talk, so I'll jump up real quick. Based on the social climate that we've had, we have dealt with a lot of mental health issues, a lot of suicidal ideations, and in society these days, we hear a lot of negativity about the police. So I wanted to let council know, we had a gentleman since your last council meeting that was sitting on the 34 overpass on Roosevelt and threatening suicide. We had 2 officers, Officer Abby Weatherwax and Officer Nathan Crooks, that arrived. As Abby was talking to the gentleman, he started to lean forward, had a cheek off and was ready to go. Officer Crooks tackled him down and ended up with a quality resolution to it. As we took him to the hospital, he was thankful to our officers for the job that they did. So I realize you guys hear good, bad, and everything. I just wanted to point out that our officers continue to do the job that you guys pay them to do, and I wanted them to be noticed to you guys. They will receive commendations from our department as well, but I just wanted to point out something good that happened in our department these days.
Kudos to the
Awesome
heroes.
story, yes.
That's fantastic. Chief Trexel? No, Jim?
For radio, this week, Chief Truxell will do my position. Thank you. But you all are gonna be up for next week, so.
Okay.
Make sure to remember that and keep that on your lineup. leaves, is next week the last week? Or we got 2 more weeks?
You had 2 full weeks in December, this week, next week, after next week's the last week, yeah.
Next week?
The end of the next week.
End of next week. So for those who are a Monday pickup like us, we only have 1 more chance. Those the rest of the week have this week and next week to get those done, so make sure you take advantage of that. And budget, is we've tried to figure out what works for my schedule and everyone else's, where I'm available. I've been trying to do as much as I can on Monday and Tuesday here. And as we went into budget presentations and looked at them, and what we've traditionally done is meetings on Thursday nights. And we've looked at we talked at our department head meeting about 2 different things to do. One is to pack them in on the Mondays and Tuesdays, which would mean extending meetings after a council meeting, a regular council meeting. But the other option, doing a Saturday. If we were to do a Saturday, we could do an extended where we got rid of at least two of the major departments, such as thinking like Eric's and Nick's, where you have those big budgets that take a long time to work through. Don, we put on a time frame where he's not allowed to go any longer than a certain period of time. But would that January 16, that Saturday for an afternoon, be a possibility to make that happen?
I can do the whole day if
Well,
we need it. I know
he-
Robert's got the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask for the January 30, for the other stuff, maybe, if we can, the later we can start on January 16, the more of a guarantee I'll be home in time, depending on where they have me. Again, January's probably be lighter on vacation, I'll have more flexibility probably, but I can't guarantee it.
Yeah, and we have had people miss budget meetings before, but I would like to see us accommodate as much as we can.
Yeah.
I think I'd be okay Saturday mornings, like if we started at 8 and as long as we were done by noon. But so my wife is starting her clinical rounds, and those are pretty heavy days for her, starting mid-morning. So it would be difficult for me to be away on Saturdays, so.
And I'm good with whatever you guys decide, but just as something to think about. They see a lot of COVID contamination when people eat or share a meal together, or the break room type of scenario. So just something to think about. If we go long, we may just have to do lunch on your own and leave the building. Just something to consider.
A Saturday would be better for me, as long as it's not the 9th or the 30th.
So preference, is it the 16th? But we can't accommodate all of those.
I'll make it work, whatever you want.
I would prefer Tuesday evenings, but I'm one of
Well,
five.
we're still
We're
looking
using
to use
Tuesdays.
Tuesday evenings, but the other option is to have your council meetings and then have an additional budget session after
Afterwards.
the council sessions on Mondays.
And I'm fine with that because we're already here, so.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, as long as it's not dawn after the council meetings, we can get the shorter ones in.
I'll be real iffy on, because I just had my athletic director resign. So I'm gonna be pretty iffy
On,
on Tuesdays. Right now we have games on the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th.
Yeah, basketball season starts tomorrow, so Tuesdays are not my preferred, but I could do it if I have to.
Tuesdays, we've historically done what would be the 11th, 18th, and 26th
Of January or?
of January,
Yeah, see, I think I'd rather do
or
like,
whatever those 3 dates are. I'm going,
I would rather do one after our meetings on Mondays, and then we've always done Tuesdays, so maintain those versus pushing it to Saturdays, so.
all right.
But you guys can't do Tuesdays. is
I
it?
prefer not to do Tuesdays. If I
Tues-
have to do Tuesdays, I'll make it work, but it is the
Tuesdays-
senior year, so.
Tuesdays, we've typically done at 3:30. Now,
Yeah.
that doesn't work so well for your schedule.
Tuesday at 3:30, well, like if I was on this route, doing it tomorrow, yeah, it'd be perfect. I was going at 2 o'clock today, and today was my home day, so.
Well, and if nothing else, I mean, we do tape them. And it could be the council's gonna have to do some extra work off hours if we can't get our schedules together. As far as watching the meeting and go from there.
So I'm not hearing a preference to see a Saturday.
I'll make anything work that you want. Saturday works for me.
Preference from you all sounds like to have extended Mondays and Tuesday.
That's a great idea.
All right.
Okay. All right, council, Robert, anything?
I'm good.
Bill?
Good.
Matt? See, I faked you out.
You did, you picked me out
I
too.
know.
I'm like, you still leaving Linda. I'm good.
He's getting back from when I reversed the pledge.
Linda?
I wanted to wish a very, very happy birthday to Trenton, my youngest son, who turns 18 today.
Well, happy birthday to him. The only thing I have, this last week, I was approached by some leaders from the Burlington community regarding my personal lack of public comment on Lisa Walsh's statements on Facebook. This is part of a statement I gave him. As a private citizen and as the mayor of the city of Burlington, I wholly condemn her comments. They were wrong, vicious, degrading, and as such have no place in this community. But because her comments were so heinous, I did not feel the need to state the obvious that I condemned her thoughts, but now I realize that my leadership position requires a statement. And I regret not making it a public statement earlier. However, I felt it was more important to get to work on addressing the matter. And while it's no secret that Mrs. Walsh's family owns Farmers and Merchants Bank here in Burlington, I have been in contact with various leaders at F&M Bank regarding this issue and communicated my thoughts directly toward steps that need to be taken to repair the damage done to our community. After talking with the leaders at the bank, I feel that it should be strongly noted that Lisa Walsh's comments do not reflect those thoughts of the Walsh family or of many of their good-hearted, hardworking employees who depend on that bank for their employment. Further, it should be recognized that for generations, F&M Bank has spearheaded charity drives, led community committees, and many other good works led through their volunteerism. However, I do realize that Ms. Walsh's comments were vile enough to make those efforts by the bank seem like a distant memory. The bank has work to do, as do we all. I pledge better and more open communication to all in Burlington, and I'm sure along with members of City Council, which I have not talked to them about this, stand with you all and shoulder to shoulder, ready to help Burlington heal and to make Burlington worthy of the motto, a great place to live, work, and play for all. If anybody has any thoughts, they can call me on my cell, 319-759-1831, or email me at mayorofburlingtoniowa.org. I welcome those comments. And with that, I'd like to end unless anybody else has anything else.